Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a new episode of the X Button, Season 4, Episode 7. I am your host, Alejandro, with me, with his bi-weekly check-in, the Fat Chocobo.
Paul, hey everybody. I've been spreading democracy like it's going out of style.
Yeah. Can you believe that the last time that you were in the, like 2 weeks ago was when the game came out? It does not
It
feel like that.
is, it's really highlighted how much actually happens in the span of 2 weeks
Uh-huh.
because how much catch up we have to do usually.
Mm-hmm.
Can you imagine if I was in a position like I am right now last year
Uh-huh.
with all of the news and all of the stuff going on, all of the releases? I would have been worn out trying to catch everything up by that
Yeah.
point.
But that's what's that's the ironic thing. It's like, I feel like we're still in 2023 with everything,
Yeah.
how it's been.
It's just
And to me, that's wild.
2023 too,
Mhm.
because it's all the same stuff.
Yeah, I do feel it's gonna stop though. I feel
Oh
like
yeah.
a year. You should, to me, like I consider January, February, and March kind of like the new October, November, and December. That's usually what it feels like, and that's exactly how this year feels like based on the calendar. But I'll accept and take it all in because it has made this one of the best starts of a year. But other than that, how's life been, Paul?
Honestly, it's been pretty good. The
Yeah.
stuff that we've gotten, the surprises we've gotten, those are the ones that I really live for. And we got a couple of those, and I could not be happier with the situation that we're finding ourselves in right now, which I'll go into more detail with later on.
Yeah. Oh yes, and also, it's a boy.
It is a boy. I thought
Yeah,
I'd said that previously now, but
not in the show.
oh, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Yes, everybody listening, for those that are riveted and wanting to know more about my unborn child, it is a boy. And man, I can't believe that is even a thing. And it's going to be very fun
Mhm.
to get to let him experience all of the world as I have, all of the shows and movies and
Mhm.
video games and comics that I've not only grown up with but found since then. It is just going to be so fun to let them experience that and
Oh yes,
watch that happen.
he's gonna be a gamer. That's the exciting part. So it's
He's
like,
going to be a gamer whether he likes it or not. However, I'm going to be pretty limited on it until he's old enough to understand it. Like, that whole issue they talked about where kids' eyes need to develop enough
mhm.
before they're actually ready. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna hold off on it as long as I possibly can, just for the health side of it. But man, I'm gonna be itching to
Yeah.
show him all of the cool
The,
stuff.
the shoe's finally in the other foot.
Yep,
Yeah,
it's
that's
finally
gonna be so
time.
funny to hear. You, like
Uh, I I,
you're now in that other side.
I want to know his like reactions to things the most, where it's
Mhm.
gonna be like either this is the greatest thing I've ever seen, or he's going to be super like. Ah, yeah, it's okay, I guess. And I'm gonna
Mhm.
be like, "Are you kidding me? This is the best thing ever. You don't
Yeah.
even know what you're talking about." Oh, he's definitely playing Kingdom Hearts, that's
Oh
for
yes. No,
sure.
you have to get him early. Get
I
him a
have
Kingdom
to.
Hearts early so that before
Uh-huh.
like cynicism like even remotely gets close to like getting into
Yeah.
his stratosphere. Like you got to
He's
get him
gonna
into
still
the
be like, "Yo, it's Donald Duck and Goofy. This is the best game ever." And then
yeah,
he's gonna get destroyed by
yeah.
everything.
Make sure you get him Epic Mickey. We'll talk about
Oh,
that
yeah.
later.
Well, we'll talk about that at some
Yes.
point too.
So yeah, but so yeah, good to have you back here, Paul. Hopefully, it's not gonna take too much with the things that have been happening because we're itching to go back to play a bunch of stuff. But before we
Oh
go back
yeah.
into that, this is just a reminder that this is the X Bottom Podcast, our gaming podcast that posts every Fridays from 10 a.m. onwards, God willing, available in the YouTube channel Escape Gaming, as well as most audio services around the world, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and the like. You can find links in the RSS feed at tinyurl.com/escapegaming. If you enjoy our show, give us a like and subscribe. And just for housekeeping, you can go read my Skull and Bones review over at seasongaming.com. I was going to record an episode with our buddy Sebastian, who covered for you in the inner weeks that you're not here. He was here
Yeah.
last week, and we kind of announced that we were going to do an episode on Suicide Squad. And from sickness that he randomly got, and then like some construction that then he had to do that has been like pushed, but that is eventually coming. So
What was the last thing that y'all did that was like 3.5 hours or something?
241. The last one,
241.
yeah, the
Okay.
last this past episode. I thought it was actually longer, if I'm perfectly honest, because we went on a whole diatribe about Helldivers 2, which now you get to talk about, Paul. You haven't like we
I
barely got to
am.
talk about it like the last time you were here, because it was in the bunch of the games that we were playing. We had just been playing like a few hours, but now you have 2 weeks on your belt. You're
We've
like
settled
level
in.
21.
23
Okay,
now.
so you climbed to 23 in the last 2 days.
I I have now played with almost all of the friends that I've convinced to buy the game. There's one left that the scheduling hasn't worked out for us. But are we just jumping in for this,
Yeah,
by the way?
yeah,
Okay, I just wanted to
good.
make sure that we didn't have anything else to go
Nope.
in there
Mm-hmm.
because this is going to be all off the cuff. We're going to be firing from the hip. Um, Helldivers 2, I'm going to start off. I'm not going to bury the lead. Is one of the best multiplayer experiences I've had since Halo 3. I am hearkening back to the great days of multiplayer lore and yore, and
Mm-hmm.
it seems like everybody else has as well, which is both validating and slightly frustrating because
Mm-hmm.
both of that I knew it before it was going to be
Uh-huh.
really popular. Like I saw the potential. I knew it was going to be good. But then there's that also like, man, I want to play the game and servers aren't up to capacity.
Yeah,
But
still.
jokes aside, which by the way, the AFK patch did drop, so all of those
I
people
was
that were
testing
trying
it.
to
I
lock
got
it in.
I got AFK. I have the TV on and I got kicked out. So I wanted to
Hmm.
test it to see if it was right. So
Which, I mean, good for all of those people that have been trying to hold it hostage. Part of me wants to think that that's going to help, but also there's just so many people trying to play this game that I don't know if it will for right now, but at least
mhm.
it's a step in the right direction, even if it means that I can technically play it less.
Yeah.
Now, let me get into the nitty-gritty on why I really find this game extremely special. On the one hand, it's very simple. It is just you drop in, you spend 15 to 40 minutes doing a thing, and then you get to leave in a very climactic moment, and then you get to do it again with your buddies. Basically, when you boil it down, it is just the perfect level of like it's engagement without getting too draining. There's only a couple of missions that I've ever been on where I feel like, okay, I need to get out of here. You feel like you could just jump in, you can jump out. It's just bite-sized enough, I would say, a little bit more than your like average Armored Core 6, because we had that whole discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's
Oh, this takes
definitely
way
a
longer. This definitely takes way
yeah.
longer than Armor Core 6.
Well,
An Armor Core mission
I'm
could get you like a
talking
minute.
right. I mean, I'm more referring to the longer Armored Core missions, like the really beefy ones.
Oh, okay.
And this is like comparable with some of those because those were like 20 to 30 minutes, I would say.
Mm.
But at the same time, this is like a Mr. Incredible. Yeah, I've got time. Like when you really got a second, you want to sit down, you want to play either like your round of Apex Legends, which is like 17 to 20 something minutes. Fortnite is about 22 minutes each. This is like if you're really cooking, you can kind of do that in that time, especially if you've got a squad with you. And that is where this comes in because this game can be played solo and you can still have some fun. But let me tell you, when you get three of your buddies in there, or even just one, the co op is where it sings. It is like if we finally got Breath of the Wild and then we made it co op
Mm.
because that is what it feels like when you
Mm.
have the physics working against you and with you.
Mm.
Um, and you just get to goof off with your friends. I could not do it more justice than watching all of the clips that we've seen thrown through Reddit, through Twitter, through
Mm.
Facebook, through YouTube, compiled in many different places like Vine compilations. It is just the exact level of 5 to 20 second comedy hour that it is the funniest stuff that you've ever seen. People have the perfect comedic timing naturally, it seems. And then on the other side of it, it's just a really solid shooter that is genuinely fun to play.
Mm.
It's got variety, it's got player expression through the armors, the helmets, the capes. You can buy the game for $40, so that's a price point thing,
Mm.
and the fact that you don't have to pay for anything else on top of it, despite the fact that it is a quote unquote games as a service slash
Mm.
live service game. You do not have to buy into any of that, literally. You play the game, you earn the currency that is the real money. You can buy any of that. The CEO has clarified that everything you can unlock with real money is only a different kind of way to do the fun stuff,
Hmm.
but none of it is designed to be more powerful than the others. And frankly, there's a lot of the free items that are more powerful
Then the battle
than
pass
many
stuff.
things.
Yeah.
Exactly. But it's like it's different because there's moments where you want to use some of that premium stuff, and it's not necessarily better, but it's a different flavor of what you're already using, and it keeps the fun going because it changes things up at all times. Let's load on top of that the 40 or maybe 50, I don't actually remember the number, different stratagems, as they call them, different
Hmm.
things you can call down between power weapons that are grenade launchers, your LMGs, your rocket launchers, all of that stuff. You've got the orbital cannon strikes and all of the different variations of those. You've got the A-10 Warthog Burt kind of call in airstrikes.
Hmm.
You've got sentry turrets of all sorts of kinds. I was playing with some of my friends and we turned an entire map into a tower defense game. it
Hmm.
the level of variety that I have seen people use, the different ways they can do things, the times things go well, the times that things go poorly, all of it is self-contained in this fantastic little circle of area of operations, little things to do inside of it. The 30-second loop of gameplay, no, 30 seconds of fun
Hmm.
that Bungie was so famous for
Yeah, this is all
is
over this thing. It's all over
always
this
in
thing.
there because you've got your main weapon, you've got the power weapon, you've got your sidearm, you've got your grenades, you've got the ability to call any of that in for all of your crazy stuff. All of these planets look completely different. The two different factions, which I thought were going to be like oh, I'm tired of this now because there's only
Hmm.
two of them. Well, there's about 20 different enemy types within that change from difficulty to difficulty. And you've also got consumables and collectibles you can grab inside of each of your areas of operation. You can completely change around the way you play the game by picking different equipment. All of the armor sets have passives. It's just all of these different things coming together, and all on top of it is just that it's fun to play, and everybody and your mom wants to play it as well, and it leads to you reconnecting with friends you haven't talked to in a while. It leads to you getting to play just all of the fun things that you used to do, and it's just such a great time. I can't think of anything else that I haven't said right now,
Hmm.
but I could keep gushing about this game. I have played it I checked 2 days ago. I think I had 46 hours in it,
Yeah, sounds right.
and
Sounds about right.
I've since played it probably another 3 to 6 since then.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
it keeps going, and it's the gift that keeps on giving. The CEO and all of the people there are a class act. That is one other thing. Just the level of communication that has been present in this game. I hope and pray that people see this as a bastion of exactly what to do whenever you're overwhelmed, whenever something doesn't go right. They have not only through their Discord, but the CEO is on Twitter. They are constantly talking about the realities of what they're doing. They're not sugarcoating it. They're like, hey,
Hmm.
listen, guys, this is not going well. We're struggling. We're working through the night. And I think just some level of that honesty through people is just leading to a much more acceptable response from
Hmm.
people. There's a far less toxic situation. There's, of course, your exceptions. I read some of those out of curiosity, and it's kind of funny to see them get blasted by all of the comments
Hmm.
because these people are being honest in how hard they're working for this game. They had no idea what was going to happen
Yeah.
with it. The success is
No.
unprecedented.
Do you see what the peak numbers were of the original?
Not even 7,000, I
Uh huh.
think.
Yeah, I just on
Yeah,
PC, even though that was like a console
right.
game. So it's like, no one. This is the surprise of the year. Like,
Yes.
like just as much as Pal World. Like when that exploded just a few weeks ago. This has been an even bigger surprise because Sony kind of sandbagged this. Like they led with like a preview event like super late, like almost before like the game came out. That's the one
I
that
will say they did two segments in State of Plays where they did like either an extended trailer or a gameplay segment with the trailer, and
very
that was
brief,
the weird. Yeah,
very
it was
brief.
compared to everything else that was being showed during those, it was always forgotten by the time something else would show up.
Let me put it like this: Foam Stars got more airtime from Sony than
Yeah.
this. So,
And that is both like disappointing, and it makes perfect sense because this is the kind of game that you're not going to look clearly at. They're going to think, oh, this was the 360 game that was never meant to be, and why are you making this now? We've moved fawns from all of this so much, and just very emphatically proving that that is not the case, and people have been craving this kind of stuff. And there's a few outside kind of examples of like coincidences that have just timed themselves perfectly, like the breaking point with a lot of people with Call of Duty. I think it was the $34
the skin, yeah,
that you can't even buy that. You have to buy the next step up, which is $50.
You can get this game for much cheaper.
You can buy the entire game that comes with all of this stuff for less than it costs to do all of that. And the only other one was Fortnite, which was the direct competition. And like, granted, we've talked about how well they did for this last season. We enjoyed the heck out of ourselves. And then I dropped it like Andy in Toy Story, and it said, I don't want to play with you anymore because this
we got
game
Solid
is
Snake
absorbing my life, and we got Solid Snake, and we don't even have to worry about anything else, unless you want to get the other character that we're going to talk about later on. Yeah. But yeah, I would say that I'm sometimes the pessimist between the two of us. And I have nothing but really solid things to say about this game. And of course, like, there's always a few negatives here and there. There's always places of improvement.
The disconnects have been like the biggest problem. But what's so funny is that any other game that has had the server problems, they would have gotten raked through the coals. It's so funny how this is the one game where that has not been a problem. Like, there's just been something about like something really weird. Like, this could be like an interesting case study. Like, why isn't this being raked through the coals over the game just basically not functioning, not letting you in, compared to other stuff that just got like dragged through the streets? And I do wonder if it's the surprise factor, if it's the Ratatouille moment that I mentioned. Like, you play this and then you feel like you haven't had this kind of multiplayer shooter in like forever. Because what is a live service game nowadays? A game that's all about just trying to funnel you through a battle pass, like crossovers between different brands, maybe fake MMOs that are looters, and that's been the multiplayer scene. That has been, or a battle royale, something that has finally kind of stopped now. If finally people are not launching new battle royales, that's the war was over there. Now people have just left Call of Duty, Apex, and Fortnite do their thing. So it's like that has been multiplayers right now. Battlefield has been dead. Like, even though like they kind of fixed Battlefield 2042, was like that kind of multiplayer gone. Like, Call of Duty is just what it is. So it's like there's just something about Helldivers 2 that just felt so refreshing, and especially it's standing next to these other games that came out that were live service next to it. It was so funny seeing the review scores of this one next to the reviews of Suicide Squad and Skull and Bones and even Foam Stars. It's like someone was making the joke, man, imagine if Helldivers 2 had not hit. That would have been like the four horsemen of the apocalypse of like live service like failures. And we talked about Suicide Squad. Well, like, that game is a disappointment, but it had good stuff in it. There was like good stuff to be enjoyed out of that one, but not even remotely close as enjoyable as what you can get out of Helldivers 2. Like, absolutely. Like in Suicide Squad, you see like the what not to do nowadays. Don't make a game that takes freaking forever, that's gonna cost $70. Like, you spent so much money making like production value that is like insane for that kind of game that they're not gonna recoup. I keep saying that. To me, it's insane that Suicide Squad looks as good as it did, where it looks even better than something like Spider-Man 2. It's like they're not gonna make their money back with that thing. It's like, you see the Steam numbers now, it's like 600 concurrents right now on PC. It's like
less than 1,000, which is crazy for the level of money they probably spent.
And it used to be top 10 on the PSN. It's out. Like, that, it's been kicked out of like the top 10 of the best selling PS. So it's like the burn rate of that thing went out fast. And even trying to mention Skull and Bones, which is like the only reason why I didn't play more of Helldivers 2 was because I was reviewing Skull and Bones. You can go all read my review over at seasongaming.com, people. I gave it a 6 out of 10. I had a frustrating time with this one because unless I was playing with Travis from IGN, who reviewed it, he actually gave it a 7. And we were actually talking about it, kind of like how 90% of the time he played it with someone. I played 90% of the time of this game solo. So it was like,
Hmm.
and there you have it. So it's like, Skull and Bones was a miserable game to play by myself. It was a wonderful game to play with someone. It's like, there's if what makes Helldivers 2 like so fun is the fact that you can be playing solo and quick play, and you can still have a good enough time because the objectives are clear. It's like everyone is like, it's not like the grief fest it could and should have been, considering kind of like how easy it is to like friendly fire everyone.
Yeah.
And there's like something so healthy about like the community that's been like surrounding Helldivers 2 that I'm kind of like super excited to hopefully this is like the flashpoint. I have been saying is like I've been living in live service in the service area. Like we had that you had to basically do a dissertation to kind of explain to Sebastian why like what made this game special compared to like other live service, because he has a very narrow like just fuck games as a service like mentality without like getting into the nuance that there's different like layers to it. Like the layer that I'm like stop doing it is the looter. Stop doing like looter live service games. Everyone that has done a looter has failed. Avengers, Anthem, and now Suicide Squad. And even Suicide Squad that I enjoy playing, the fact that even I kept playing it, I've been leveling up and all of the game has gotten patches that make it less functional. So even then that game is going through like the path of like the more they update it, the worse it's getting like over time. So it's like don't do that. Especially because those are like the people that make looters in the live service area are people that usually do single player stuff that then decided like, no, we want to try something different. They have all failed. So I'm like, stop doing that. This kind of multiplayer though, with pure design, where you don't have to like worry about a level purple machine gun versus like a level blue purple machine gun. How nice is that? Like how like how clear cut it is to just like get different weapons that are not like a loot game. It's like it made me realize like just how infested a multiplayer live service is just in that kind of like like the whole green, blue, purple, gold thing. That's from MMOs. That literally came from from that era. Like the MMO mentality really like invaded multiplayer, and this is why this feels so nice, because the 360 era was not full of that. The only thing we got of a looter was Borderlands. So that's why and even then that felt really cool, because like we usually don't get this kind of game there. Is it just the pendulum swung way too way too far that way that even just normal RPGs have embraced like MMO mentality, like the Assassin's Creed games. Hogwarts Legacy also had like, here's your green level 1, here's your blue level 1, here's your purple level. It's like that's just like everywhere, and that's why it's so good to get counter programming. It's so beautiful to get counter programming, and also something that can teach. This is gonna be like a teachable moment, because it's like Sony still has other live service games cooking, and those have been like supposedly Bungie has kind of like overseen and kind of like gave their feedback on those. Apparently, this was one that they didn't. Huh? How did that work, huh? So yeah, what a shocker. So that's why I'm like.
It is funny though. I did want to make one little mention while we were on Suicide Squad, is that it made me remember how much I enjoyed Ghost Recon Breakpoint. Because like when you take away all of the dumb gear stuff, it's just a solid third-person shooter.
Yeah, when they went back to Wildlands, that didn't have that. Then they added that in Breakpoint initially, and the game sucked. And then they took that out. It was like, oh, there was a great game all along here before the suits came in, and be like, no, it has to be like everything else. So that's why I'm hoping that here's the reality, live services are here to stay. That's just like, there's still a lot of money that can be made. And I also see kind of like the example, as much as Sebastian hates it, look what's happening over at EA. FIFA funds them, or like EA Sports FC, whatever that thing is called now. It's like, that money is like, because then if something is like bringing the money, then they can experiment on single player stuff or other stuff that if they don't make their ROI, it's like, okay, we're stopping doing that. When you have like a live service that feeds the beast, it's like that's what's gonna help. Like for example with the cause, it's so funny now that we know that Sony has like their profit margins are like in the shitter right now. It's like I know that they're gonna spend less money like in doing the games that they usually make, and apparently even though this game took 8 years, the fact that it was only like less than 100 people working on it made it for the cheap. It doesn't look expensive. It still look kind of pretty. Like in some spots, I like the art direction of some of those worlds, but it's like the success of this also like warms my heart because it's like, what have I kept saying, Paul? It's like, I love me some shiny graphics. There's a game we're gonna talk about and review that looks really pretty. That is not the be all and all that makes a game good. And I think
again down to art direction.
Art direction and fun.
And fun.
Exactly. And that's why Helldivers 2 is like the biggest surprise. And I don't know if the concurrence have stalled, but it was like just keep climbing and climbing and climbing. It beat GTA. And Call of Duty's like peak in Steam. It was like
last I saw it was 466, I think.
Yeah, so it's like a gradual. It's just the fact that like obviously like Palworld peaked at 2 million, but that was Palworld. That was kind of like the Pokemon like side guy stuff, the controversy that just kind of like was a cascading effect. What are the concurrent numbers of that game now? Like 300 or something. So it's like it was such a peak, and then it just like crashed and stabilized like so small. It's like the gradual like climb of Helldivers from 70 like it beat it from the start. It beat God of War's like peak because that was like the most the peak concurrent players that a PC PlayStation game had gotten, and they just kept growing and growing and growing and growing and growing. And to me, it's kind of like what I told Sebastian, like if one of these games needs to be like the success story, it has to be this one, the one that rejects all the BS that has like infected multiplayer. If Suicide Squad had been this, then be worried because it's like, yep, the single player Rocksteady studio took the right path. Look at all their success now. It's like this tells a different tale, and I just hope that people remember the 360 ethos of the multiplayer era. That is still to this day the most fun multiplayer era for a reason. And that era didn't need million battle passes, million microtransactions. Like developers just like warmed the thinking that that's the only thing that can make like a successful multiplayer game. And then you think like, why are people still playing Halo 3?
Yep.
It's just like if you make it fun, exactly. So if it's something's just fun, it's like that's all you need. You don't need all these million carrots and the sticks. So. And then, kind of like I mentioned with Skull and Bones, I really don't want to say more about that other than if you at least have a friend with you that wants to play it, then that's the only way I can recommend it. If you want to play solo, go play Black Flag. Paul, tell me about Pacific Drive because we bought it, you installed it, I think you started playing it, I haven't played it yet, so...
Yes, I did. So imagine, if you will, what's the best description? Like, what if you took, like, Control... and you turn it into a instead of going into the oldest house and finding out you're going to be the new director, but like one of those objects of power just happened to take the form of a car.
Okay.
And you are trapped inside of it because the opening minutes, I didn't understand, like from the trailers and stuff, it's much clearer once you actually play the game that you just get sucked into this thing without your permission inside this quarantine zone where literally everything is constantly collapsing and changing and shifting, and you go through brief periods of stability. But there is when you get sucked in, you find this old station wagon, and they very quickly explain through like the audio files and stuff, very Control style, that, oh, this is one of these weird things. It's taken the form of a car and it seems attached to you. Okay, weird, but it's going to keep you alive, so stay with it. And then the whole game becomes, you're now in this stability space, which is a garage, and then you go out into the really sketchy spots. It's not an open world. It just kind of like you go through this sort of gate, and then you end up in the next area. I don't know if it's like procedural or if it's specifically created, but there is a very specific story they're trying to tell. They're really holding their cards close to their chest for the story, but it's like a lot of mysteries and a lot of stuff to unweave, and it's really cool in a like a Firewatch kind of way. But
the art style specifically has like has those
big,
those feels.
And for those that were frustrated with Firewatch's story and how things didn't pan out the way a lot of us expected, without spoiling it, because it is still a very good game, you do not have anything to fear with that, because there is plenty of weird crap going on that is not explained away. It is just like, this is some like Twilight Zone nonsense. It's gonna kill you. Get moving. And there's something special about this game where I've talked about it a lot, where I'm not a big fan of survival games. There's something about attaching it to your vehicle that I
Mhm.
find far more interesting than when it's just like you as a person and you're like building things up or
Yeah,
like base building.
survival mechanics kill Skull and Bones for me. They added a bunch of survival crap into that thing. So
Wait, for which one?
Skull and Bones.
Oh yeah, that doesn't even make sense for a game like
Hmm.
that either. But like for this one, and makes excuse me, it makes me remember all of the stuff I love No Man's Sky and Elite Dangerous for,
Hmm.
because all of it is about outfitting your ship for survivability, for beefing it up, and the only difference between that is that you're not beefing up your offensive capabilities. You are getting your ability to run and move as fast as you can. And for some reason, there's this little spot in my brain that when it's attached to a vehicle, you can make it as simulation as possible. And I just freaking love it. There's something about like flight sims that I cannot get enough of. That's probably why I love mechs. That's why I love racing games. And the more you let me interact with stuff on a dashboard, it's like the flip the button, hit the gear shift, turn the car on. And I don't know why, like my favorite part of Elite Dangerous is off and land from a space station. It's the dumbest thing. It's the most routine thing you do, but I love the concept of hitting all of the buttons, doing your landing gear and all of that. And this is exactly that spot of my brain turned into an entire game. Because while like granted, it seems like a very slow pace. It's a very slow burn. They try to explain a lot of stuff, which I will. There's a specific bug.
Hmm.
Don't pick up everything in every first locker that you get because they want you to pick up exactly the thing that they're asking for and nothing else. And then you need to go back to it later on as you're like going through the checklist.
Hmm.
Because I went to a point where it bugged out and it would not give me the next objective because I'd already pulled the thing out of the locker. That was just a weird bug. I had to reset and do part of the mission over. But anyway, once you're actually getting to the actual gameplay loop, is it's pretty fun. It's certainly no Helldivers 2 right now, but if
Hmm.
I can't get into the servers,
Yeah.
this is going to be what I'm going to like kind of keep pushing on, see what the deal is. I think 7 is a probably apt score to give it if I had to give it one.
Hmm.
But it also has the potential for like a Death Stranding kind of thing
Hmm.
where it's like starting off and at first you're like, "Oh, this is the whole game. I'm just walking from one place to the next."
And then
And I
suddenly you
feel like there's
realize.
yeah, there's a lot of depth that they're holding really close, and I can feel that presence of it. I just need to get to the point where, like, the shoe drops
Hmm.
and things start really unfolding.
Yeah, I mean
So yeah,
this thing got an 83, 82 meta and Open Critics, so it's like it was reviewed well. So I was like, the survival elements were the ones I was like, because a game has to be so good that the survival elements like don't like hinder my enjoyment. It's like I think of Zelda because Zelda got survival mechanics also, but
right.
they managed to make it work. It's about letting them work in a way that are enticing to like engage instead of feeling like obstacles to overcome all the time. Or kind of like be like, I need to fight. It's like something survival mechanics work against your enjoyment. That's kind of like the thing where I mentioned is like that ruined Skull and Bones for me because it was like, you have to like your ship has stamina. You have to like keep the stamina up by keeping feeding your people. If you die in the ship and then when you respawn, your ship has like less health now. So it's like you have to like go back into you have to go back into like an island to go like repair the ship because if not, like every time you get killed, the ship it's gonna have less and less and less health until like you're completely like, out and about. So it's like just so many little things are like, why is this here? This is just adding extra annoyance, and
Yeah.
you can't fast travel unless you dock into like a dockable port, so then you can access fast travel to like fast so somewhere else. It was that kind of game. So
And that
I
is
don't.
one thing I did want to actually mention because I told you, but not on the recordings, that there's a ton of accessibility options
Mm-hmm.
uh, for every area of those survival situations. There's a couple of them that will disable your trophies, but that's like take no damage or your
Mm-hmm.
car is impervious to everything. But it's like you still have enough that you can go experience that story for yourself, and I feel like that's going to be worth the time spent on the story, especially
Mm-hmm.
if you feel like the survival parts are frustrating. Flip some of those, and you can also change those at any point as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like that they went that level for us.
Yeah. I can't wait to try it, but I am like replaying a bunch of stuff because of what's coming. Before we talk about those, Paul, like anything you want to say about Need for Speed Unbound that recently got released in PlayStation Extra?
Only
Even
that
though you had access to it on Game Pass like
I
all
know.
this
I
months.
did know it. I just didn't want to go through the process of like, okay, let's put it on the Xbox, let's play
Mm.
it some, because I had other things to play and I didn't feel like switching out my wires and all of that. But anyway, yeah, Need
So
for Speed
the way
Unbound.
you have your console set up, you have to like keep changing wires.
There, my that pink TV that I play a lot of stuff on has a dead remote, so I have to physically get up and unplug one wire and plug in the next to actually get it to switch because I can't change the inputs
Mm-hmm.
because there's actually not a console like button on it. There's only a power button.
That really
So
sucks.
it really sucks. But it also gets me to not get too lazy with things. So I have to I make my decision. I stand up. I switch the power cord, not power cord, the HDMI, and then I'm sitting back down. It's not really a big deal, but it stops me from like really just, oh, let me just try this out.
And back after a little technical hiccup there. So Paul, why about Need for Speed Unbound? So
Yeah, so imagine if you took Need for Speed and ran it through the Into the Spider-Verse filter, and you've basically got what is going on here, which is some of the most stylish racing that I've seen in a very long time. Where Need for
arcade
Speed,
racing.
yes, arcade racing. Because it is Need for Speed always this like calling itself realistic, but everyone was like, no, it's not. And I think it's finally time that they acknowledged that instead of just like it being
Yeah.
gameplay, but taking it super seriously.
It never was considered like realistic. That was always the equivalent to like a Fast and Furious.
Let
That
me
was what,
clarify.
yeah.
The tone was always like, this is the real world. This is the
Mm.
gritty racing underground. I mean, like you look at all of the stuff that they've been putting out. They had Payback, they had Rivals, they
Mm.
had all of that stuff with their like really gritty tellings. And this one is like taking all of the best parts of Underground and Carbon, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
and
And
then
the original Most
taking,
Wanted, the
yes, and the
2005 Most
original.
Wanted.
That's what I was also trying to think of. And then you take all of the realistic side of like the human character, which half the time it's either like you take the burnout route where you don't even put somebody in the driver's seat, or you take the other side where you just make this really realistic character that is never seen, or then you take the other side of it as well where you just make a character around that. There's some kind of edge lord that's like, yo bro, what's good? Or you get the Troy Baker to voice him like in The Crew.
Mm-hmm.
So for this situation, they decided to get super stylish with it and just do this crazy like comic book style. And of course, I'm going to butcher all of the terminology for it, but it's just like it's cell shaded, it's bright, it's vibrant, it is like
It's
Street Fighter 6.
realistic and cell shaded. That's kind of like the weird thing about Unbound. That it's like the characters are like cartoons, like they're straight out of Hi-Fi Rush, but the car models are like ultra photorealistic. Like,
But it works
uh huh.
because like they use the effects around the car at all times. It is like that one game of SSX where they
Mm-hmm.
superimposed all of the crazy effects on top of the snowboarder. That's probably a really good example of, or like the Pro Skater later
Mm-hmm.
on days when you were
Mm-hmm.
superimposing all of the crazy effects on it, like American Wasteland, I think did
Yeah,
it.
it's American Wasteland.
Um, it's literally that, but with cars, and I am so glad for it. I hope that it did well enough that they do it again and again and again. Like they just realize this is their vibe, this is their style. Because the customization's really solid on the cars.
Mm-hmm.
You'd get a lot of like variety out of that. I didn't even get to a point where I could buy another car, but I was still like kitting it up. I had the neon, I had the extra boost, and all of those little things going on. Um, and it was just a solidly fun time, and I felt like there was a little bit more of layers to the storyline going on
Mm-hmm.
because it's a lot of like audio back and forth. You drive with a character sitting next to you
Mm-hmm.
for all the time. Excuse me. And then there's another character that you kind of has like your mentor of sorts. And then outside of that, it's just there's a lot of like stuff being talked about in the radio shows that makes me think something's going to play out later on in the story. So I really want to go back to it once things quiet down. But it was a solid game, and if you're looking for an arcade
Mm-hmm.
racer, excuse me, NFS Unbound is definitely the way to go. Now
And
that
now,
it's Game Pass and PlayStation.
and PlayStation,
Extra.
yeah, especially that, and now fully available everywhere. Even today, Tales of Arise arrived on both PS Plus and Game Pass too. So it's like it's cool to see like both services getting kind of like the same games at the same time. So it's not like just one exclusive to the other. So people are subscribed there to want to play something that may be in their wish list or may be in their like, yeah, I don't know if I want to buy it, but well, okay, it's already in the service. I might try it. It's like I'm glad Unbound is that. I tried Unbound in January actually. Again, because I did try the 10-hour EA Play trial back in like 2022 on Series S, and I enjoyed it. I was like, this is cool. I think this could look better. That was kind of like my problem with having a Series S and playing it on like a big 4K TV. Be like, oh yeah, it's like I don't know if like my TV is like my console is doing like right by my TV, and that's why I got an X, and I got to retry it on January. I was like, yeah, this is cool. I don't have the time for this right now, but it's like I'm glad it's there. And now I'm glad it's also on PlayStation because that's where I main. So, Paul, we've been like replaying the Final Fantasy VII games, like modern ones, because the new ones literally from when we're recording. It's 7 days away. I saw the post. I was like, they were waiting on that, so they were just waiting for this day.
Of course,
that's
like one of the marketing ploys that it's like, come on, guys, if you don't do this, you're lunatics.
So yeah, let's just jump in now. Press X.
Oh yeah, for some news.
Story number 1, Paul.
Review and a lot of Final Fantasy.
Yes, and a lot of Final Fantasy ahead right now. Review Roundup. Today, the review embargo for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was lifted a full week before the game comes out. So, the Metacritic and OpenCritic average after 117 reviews is at a 93 on both of them, in aggregation. So, it is currently the highest rated game of this year, and it's also the second highest rated Final Fantasy game of all time on site aggregate since Final Fantasy IX. But just kind of like as a fun fact about the Final Fantasy IX Metacritic, because OpenCritic didn't exist then, Final Fantasy IX got a 94 just with 22 reviews. 22. This has 117 and counting reviews. So, if you really want to be pedantic and really take it, this could be the highest rated game per capita and by inflation of the Final Fantasy franchise so far. So we got a couple big reviews here. We're gonna read some of the excerpts. So let's start with BGC, who gave it a 10 out of 10 / 5 out of 5, and said Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is an excellent RPG with some of the best characters in the gaming canon. While some open world content scares the edges, the time spent with Aerith, Tifa, and the gang makes this a hugely enjoyable road trip you'll be playing for hundreds of hours. Review by Jordan Middler. Gene Park from the Washington Post gave it a 4 out of 4 because they have the 4-star system that's equal to 10 out of 10 for them. And he says, it makes sense to mention Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth in the same sentence. Chrono Trigger was created at the tail end of the 2D era of games, the culmination of almost 2 decades worth of knowledge and expertise of the medium. Rebirth is now a similar achievement for this century. It's rewarding to finally see the gameplay depth of classic RPGs married to the soulful characters that the Final Fantasy franchise has pioneered not just in games but in film. Nothing can wreck your life like a Final Fantasy game because there's nothing quite like a Final Fantasy story. This is the greatest one, presented in the best way possible. ECILS's Michael Damiani gave it a 9.5 out of 10, and he says, as big of an impact as Remake made upon its release, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth eclipses it in nearly every way. It improves upon just about every facet of its predecessor by introducing incredible new mechanics, an unbelievable world to explore, countless charming minigames, another out-of-this-world soundtrack, some of the most memorable characters, and a fascinating storyline that will leave you on the edge of your seat. This is truly a must-play game for anyone who loves RPGs. Michael Hyham, who, weirdly enough, he reviewed Final Fantasy 16 for GameSpot, reviewed Final Fantasy VII Rebirth for IGN, and he gave it a 9 out of 10. And he says, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth is the game that we wanted the series to deliver for so long. It is the first Final Fantasy since 12 that is both ambitious and complete. And it is one that doesn't sacrifice any gameplay element for the sake of serving the storytelling. Rebirth is the return of Grand Final Fantasy, one that fans will discuss and remember for years to come. And Game Informer is now we're getting into 8 out of 10 territory. Game Informer gave it an 8.5 out of 10. And the extra saying, the best of Remake exists in Rebirth, but the various open world areas surrounding it, the parts that make Rebirth unique from its predecessor, sometimes miss the mark. And then GameSpot, Tamur Hussein gave it an 8 out of 10, which, just for fun trivia here, he gave Remake a 10 out of 10 back in 2020. So yeah, he says he gave this an 8 out of 10. And he says, as a game that has the unenviable task of living up to one of the strongest legacies in the medium, it is a worthy second chapter. Whether Square Enix can bring it all together in the third and final part will be the subject of much discussion from here on out. Just like at Destiny's Crossroad, an unknown future beckons once again, and anything is still possible. So, Paul, this was our number one most anticipated game when we did our episode early in January.
Yep.
We hit the nail right on the head with this one. It's like a 93. Like, this is the highest rated game right now. It's like ironically releasing around the time that Elden Ring released 2 years ago. So whenever you see a game that's releasing in late February, you know it's gonna be a banger.
It's gonna be crazy. That has been true for at least 2 years now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, except 2023. Gosh. It was like Lightfall was the one in the slot, and Lightfall didn't turn out. True. That didn't turn out well. Yeah. But yeah, it's I'm so excited for this, especially because the things that in the praising that I've been seeing is the thing I've been like wanting out of a follow-up to Final Fantasy VII Remake. Obviously, kind of like we skipped ahead to kind of read this. We've been playing. I just finished playing Crisis Core, Final Fantasy VII Reunion, the prequel that came out in 2022. I did my replay, finished it, and I started I'm on chapter 6 now of my playthrough of Final Fantasy VII Remake. I think you're farther ahead on your replay of Final Fantasy VII Remake,
yeah.
With what you have played with Remake, revisiting, and what you're reading with what they're saying here. Is how you feeling?
Well, I have to at least not completely flip-flop or anything while on recording versus off recording, because I was being a little pessimistic about it. Earlier
today when the reviews were coming in.
Earlier today, I was a little tired.
And specifically, just to give context, because I posted the picture that Gene Park, he mentioned that he wanted to kind of throw a Game of the Year kind of bomb of saying if this had come out in 2023, he would have given this Game of the Year over Baldur's Gate 3 and Alan Wake 2. So. Yeah.
That's when I think I was like, all right, Gene, come on, man. Because so at least the situation with that is I feel like the discourse around it is exhausting. People have been talking back and forth about it for a long while. It's been how long? 2019, you said?
2020.
2020? Okay.
Yeah, that's when it came out.
Yeah.
This game came out when the lockdowns had just started. This was week 2 of lockdowns.
And so I think I'm a little tired of people talking about it, going over it over and over again. I think I've said it on recording that I enjoyed the first portion of Final Fantasy VII more than the latter portion, which is the opposite of what a lot of people have considered. Because I just love the dystopian city and stuff. And Final Fantasy VII, if you've seen screenshots of it, is nothing compared to that. Once you are open into this world, it's just like a flat plain. There's nothing nearly as interesting to look at besides maybe Junon. But overall, it's just as someone that recently played through the PC version that's basically the version that you can play on Switch, Xbox, and all of that, and modernly is inside the towns and places you go, not just the Junon, but also Calm, Gungaga, the place of birth of Red 13, and all of that is the city of the ancients. There's so many cool in concept places in Final Fantasy VII that had not been able to see the light of day in so long, because everyone because Square Enix, when they up the resolution, let's say, and start kind of revisiting Final Fantasy VII with the compilation and Advent Children and all that, they center it all in Midgar. It was always there. So Final Fantasy VII has been kind of what you think of that game is kind of centered around those areas, because that's what Square Enix whenever they revisit it was the only thing that they focused on. The rest of that game is so incredibly ambitious and so unique in architecture and the mix of tones that is that Midgard as it exists with everything else that is in that world. It's that's something that when I was reading why Final Fantasy VII is so beloved, it was that kind of stew, that stew all together that manages to all feel congruent together. And
these later parts have never gotten to shine outside the original. And it's so hard to tell people, it's like, go back to the original Final Fantasy VII and enjoy it in its polygonal mess, in its low-res nature. You're not gonna get what makes it so cool. The game that, without this game, the PlayStation wouldn't exist. This was the game that 2 years after the PlayStation 1 released, is what solidified, like, that console. It was the game. The PS1 had no games. Like, in its first 2 years, it was like a new console. It had Gran Turismo, a bunch of licensed games. Crash Bandicoot was kind of like starting there, but Final Fantasy VII was the game. This is why it's so beloved, and ironically, the game people have wanted for this remake is this one. That a lot of people, like, when people thought about, when they wanted this remade, like what Rebirth is, it's big open world and like all these like different areas, is the game they wanted. And it's so funny that it was like we kind of got a taste in 2020, but that was just kind of like just a prologue, like literally. And now it's this. It's I am so over the moon, especially because the thing that I played about the demo, I see the improvements. I'm playing through the remake, and it's like, I like the remake a lot. I thought that was one of 2020's best games. I do not think that thing is worthy of like being like in an upper echelon myself, because there's like a lot of padding in that thing. There's like it feels weird being like so like foot on the ground in that game compared to like how like now that you can go vertical with the demo. It's like there was a lot. It was like a lot. I think a lot of people gave it a pass in 2020 because how long have people have wanted this fall? How long have people wanted a remake of this thing?
I mean, I was right there with you, especially after watching Advent Children and going, "Oh, what if we got like a revisit to all of that and
looking like this?"
Like, looking like this, and like, what if it played like Kingdom Hearts or like more actiony? And it's funny because we got almost exactly what we were looking for, and it's just it's been a long to go through it.
It's just a long time. It's been a long time. It's like the remake conversation started in 2006. Actually, no, 2005 with the tech demo on PS3 at the PS3 reveal.
And so, man, I'll never forget seeing that, and everyone was like, "Wow, it's gonna be that they're gonna be remaking 7."
Yeah, and
like, no, guys,
it was just a tech demo to test the PS3. That's what's so fun is like Square refused profusely to remake it until after they were done with 13, and then they realized they were like in dire straits because 15 was still like in development hell. This was kind of like the break glass in case of emergency, but it's the fact that they actually put the work, like. In my wildest dreams, I would not expect the second part of this remake to be like a 93 average, like in how it's been received. Like, I even said, I was like, this is gonna be like a mid-80s thing because that's what it's gonna be. So it's like and now that I have replayed Crisis Core and being like, that game's actually worse than I remember, but the parts that hit of that game really hit, and the things that they expand, like. Ignoring the padding, like going through the sewers in Final Fantasy VII Remake, which is like a really rough part. Like some of the expansions that they've been doing, like just in Seven Heaven, the people around it, kind of like them fleshing out that stuff. That's the thing that I can't wait, especially because you didn't play the update demo for that they did that they did yesterday. I did, and I got to see a taste of that because I have the 7th game in my mind, like fresh. Like I know like what those parts were like. And I'm seeing how they're expanding them, like the things that they're adding, that I'm like, yes, this is the things that I like from Remake, like being expanded. And like, I can't wait for so many areas now to finally get the shine, finally get that Advent Children treatment, for people to see that Final Fantasy VII is not just Midgar, and it's not just Nibelheim. Those two things have been like repeated ad nauseum. That's that's the area that I feel like I understand why you're tired, because that's the thing that you have constantly seen. All the time.
It's the Nibelheim specifically and all the other stuff, because it's ironic because I can't get enough of Midgar and I love it so much. That's probably one reason why I love Crisis Core so much, because we get to see more of it. Because I love those big dystopian cyberpunk-ish, steampunk-ish cities. And I think that's where part of my issue is. But yeah, I'm not going to talk this thing to death. It was nice, but I was getting tired of it because I revisited it at like the worst part of the game. It started picking back up and it was fun, but now I think I am good.
Yeah, you're talking remake. You're talking remake. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. No, and I get it. Again, like I tell you, it's like that remake is not perfect. It's like it's a really great game with a lot of issues. So that's why I hope that based on this, like that Rebirth is kind of like that, but it's significantly better in most parts. We'll see. I heard about some stuff of the story that I'm like, I've heard both ways of how the story goes. So that is gonna determine many things. But I'm glad it's living up. I'm glad it's living up to like what. After I finished Crisis Core the first time back in December 2022, this became like my most anticipated thing ever. Like at that point, because I was like, I need to see this. Like, I need to see my boy again. I need to see like this thing like from the story, especially now knowing what the 7th game is, and with reviews like this, and the things that I'm reviewing it too. So I wonder where I'm gonna land with this. Like, I'm gonna be just as high.
It is going to be very interesting. You're going to have to go full on into it, and we're going to see what happens at the end. And I'll tell you now, you better not spoil anything for me.
No.
It's probably going to get spoiled because of the internet. But
Tetsuya Nomura posted a message, be like, please don't spoil the thing.
That's going to ever stop anybody.
So I do wonder if they're gonna, because apparently there's like a streaming guidelines I saw. I was like, are they gonna like crack down on like streams and all that if they see something untoward? That's gonna be interesting. Good thing I'm not a streamer, so.
I mean, I can't imagine they're able to enforce it besides like those, this scene is blocked.
We'll see.
Yeah.
So okay, now Paul, this wasn't the only big thing that happened this week. Are you frozen again? No, there you go. I was like, you were frozen for a little bit. God damn it! It's one of those days. So, and Nintendo Direct happened today, this week too, Paul, and that was also not quite a Nintendo Direct, but it was like one of those that they call the partner showcases, which is like, oh yeah, there's third-party stuff that's gonna show up here. So let's open here the everything announced at today's Nintendo Direct Partner Showcase article by Marcus Stewart over at Game Informer. Just as we quickly read through the things that were shown here. So, Grounded and Pentiment, the two exclusives from Microsoft that we had been hearing that they were going to migrate over, got their trailer reveal here. They're coming on April 16 and February 22nd, and that's also coming to PlayStation, by the way. Ender Magnolia, Bloom in the Mist, arriving summer 2024. This is set in the world of Ender Lily's Quietest of the Night, a Metroidvania from like 2021.
Oh yeah.
So it's like a top-down thing. So no, it's actually another Metroidvania. So. Yeah. Then there's a Ranger, a role puzzling adventure. This is the top-down thing. That's coming out on summer 2024. If you like a top-down puzzle thing, it's like, this is right up your alley for those summer nights. Then we got a demo for Unicorn Overlord. So that's the Vanillaware Atlas RPG.
Which is coming to all the systems, by the way.
Yeah. I wonder, is the demo on everything? Because I know it was for Switch. So, okay,
I saw another separate post about it.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to download that. So, Monster Hunter Stories, the 2017 Nintendo 3DS RPG spin-off of Monster Hunter, is heading to Switch as well as PS4 and Steam, also in summer 2024. As this made me very excited. They said 2011. This game came out on November 2010, people. So 2010's Epic Mickey that came out on Wii is getting touched up for a comeback, not just on Switch, but every system. That's coming out later in 2024, and the remake work, you saw the picture, right, Paul, of like what it looked like and what it does. Like, is the perfect kind of remake that I like. It's like the aesthetic is like staying true to the original, but like spruced up.
Pretty much from the ground up too.
Yeah. So Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance coming out on June 21st for Nintendo Switch. The best announcement of the day, that day. Star Wars Battlefront Classic Collection coming out on March 14th. The original Battlefront games, so 1 and 2 by Pandemic, have been remastered and updated with features such as new playable characters, Kit Fisto and Asajj Ventress, and bonus maps, Java's Palace, Bespin Cloud City, and Javin 4 Arena on Battlefront 2. And it has 64-player multiplayer, so it's like, the servers are back. We're gonna get into that before. Let's just finish reading this. Sword Art Online Fractured Daydream, also coming later in 2024. Gundam Breaker 4, also coming later in 2024. Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble, coming later in June 25th. World of Goo 2, May 23, a console exclusive for the Switch. Well, ironically, a World of Goo, I think, was a Switch, was a Wii game. Fantasy Live 1, The Girl Who Steals Time, coming out on October 10. That looks like a chibi game. That's definitely going to be for that crowd. Another Crab's Treasure, coming on April 25th. Penny's Big Breakaway, out that same day. Suika game multiplayer mode expansion for that Suika game, whatever that thing is. Pepper Grinder out on March 28th, and also a demo was out that day. Pocket Card Jockey Ride-On out on Switch that same day. Contra Operation Galuga from the new Contra game that comes out on March 12th. The demo is also out now. I think that's also a demo on every system because I did try it on the Switch, but I think that's on PlayStation too. And a few additions to the Super Nintendo and Nintendo 64 online library. 5 games from Rare. And the one more thing was Endless Ocean Luminous, kind of like a remake from like a Wii game where you're like swimming around. It was like, that was one of the weirdest like one more things I've ever seen from a Nintendo Direct, and I'm like, do you really think people are gonna get hype about Endless Ocean? But hey, that's out on May 2nd. And apparently there's a Snufkin Melody of Moon in Bale coming on March 7th, Demon Slayer Kimetsu Yojaiba Suite of War coming on April 26th, and Kingdom Come Deliverance Royal Edition.
That's a shocker right there.
yeah, the Kingdom Come Deliverance is like coming out 6 years later, and it's gonna run at a nice 540p because that's usually how Switch games usually go. So obviously this Nintendo Direct is like, yeah, it's cool that there's nothing that really tickles the fancy much other than those Battlefront games. Like I was like, wow.
This is going to be like my 2 cents on it. Is another example of bringing back what was really popular during the multiplayer days of the 360 era, which this is even predating that by a good amount. But of course, we didn't really have the same thing with that multiplayer side of it. The Steam numbers were for Battlefront 2 specifically were really high and really solid, and there was a great foundation. And I'm so glad that the rest of this world gets to partake of that, gets to jump in on that. They confirmed that split screen is back. Which we didn't even mention it, but Helldivers 2 is also, they're working on a split screen co-op. Holy crap. I'm so glad split screen is starting to come back here. But anyway, just this Battlefront 2 thing, they're adding new stuff. They're putting everything that was known for those from the Galactic Conquest, the story mode that tells voiced by Tamura Morrison, through the actual fall of the Republic into the Empire, and what happens to the clones, and how just
the transition from clones, the transition from clones to like to stormtroopers. And this what's so funny is like unlike the Battlefront 2 campaign by EA that chickened out on presenting like the Empire side of things, after 3 missions you already switch sides. This one,
and also predating the weird retcon of like, oh, it's microchips in their brains that are making them evil. Like they're telling it like it was with that, and man, but yeah, continue what you were saying.
Yeah, it's like that's what was so cool about that campaign was like it committed to making a campaign where you play as the clones and the stormtroopers, and it didn't. And I was sad that they didn't go for like, the only thing that I was disappointed in that campaign is that the campaign ends in Hoth, because I'm like, it's weird that that's where the campaign ends, because it's like it would have been cool to have seen the fall of the Empire too in Endor, but obviously you can see that in the Battlefront 1.
It plays out because that's where it ends, because it's where the clones are done. Because I think it very explicitly states that Darth Vader like decommissions them and has them all executed for failing the Empire and stuff. Specifically at the end of after the original A New Hope, I remember specifically where he was like, Darth Vader was like not pleased about this at all, and he immediately like pushed forward because they lost the plans to the Death Star and stuff. And I remember there was like a clip of one of the stormtroopers standing in the trash compactor as it closes on him, and I was like, this is freaking terrifying. So by that point, I guess in their storyline that they clarify, the clones are gone by the end of Hoth, I guess, but it's kind of weird.
Yeah, it's what's funny. You'll see it. We're definitely getting this. Like, we play through that campaign, see how it ends. Like, it ends up saying like they crushed the rebellion in Hoth. It was so funny being like,
oh, that is weird.
Yeah, so that's what I find funny. I wonder if they're gonna like tweak it maybe, but who knows, man. I can't wait for the Tamara Morrison like when you go into Order 66 happens, because I've been seeing the memes on TikTok. They're all over the place. That's bad. It's only $35, people. It's gonna be cheaper right now if you get it now, because there's like a sale happening for 3150 in Switch, which is 501st if you like move the numbers. But especially after the death of Battlefront 2 for EA, where they stopped supporting it, is that people have been like, will EA ever do a Battlefront 3? Like, what's happening with Battlefront? It's like there was so much that was added post Rise of Skywalker and planets and characters and stuff that it was sad that they cut support when they did. But hey, at least we get the ones that people always love. It's kind of like what I was telling you in chat. Is like it's so weird to think that what everyone wanted out of a modern Battlefront was just these games looking prettier, and EA and DICE had to go and be like, no, we're gonna add loot boxes, we're gonna do all these different modes instead of just being a conquest mode. Their conquest mode was like Battlefield stuff. This went to the Battlefield developer, and they decided not to do that. So it's like that's such a funny fumble when you look back. But glad these games are coming back. I hope those servers work. They're from Aspire. They say there are 64 players. I want to see. I'll believe it when I see it. But at the very least, I played. Here's what's funny. I played so much of Battlefront 2 on PS2. I mentioned it in the Games That Made Us episode back in 2022. This was a game that I played over and over and over and over in free play, in Galactic Conquest. There was like so much that you could do like offline that I feel all that will be there still, even if the online is borked. But I would hope that it's not borked, but we'll see. Crossing fingers, because the idea of playing those games online again in the year of our Lord 2024 is wild. And because then we don't have much Star Wars games to look forward to. Actually, no, we're kidding. Story number 3. Report. Respawn developing a first-person Mandalorian game. Story by Game Informer's Marcus Stewart also. So we know that Respawn Entertainment, the team behind Titanfall, Apex Legends, and the Star Wars Jedi series, has a couple of unannounced Star Wars games in the works. It's unclear what form those projects are taking, but according to one report, one of them may star a Mandalorian. Insider Gaming reports that its sources have disclosed that Respawn is developing a first-person title in which players assume the mantle of a Mandalorian. For clarification, players do not play as the Mandalorian, as in Din Djarin from the hit Disney Plus series, but rather as a different bounty hunter. The game is reportedly set during the height of the Galactic Empire and will see players capturing or killing bounty targets. Sounds like Star Wars Bounty Hunter from 2002. Yeah.
I'm a little sad that it's going to be the first person, but
yeah. Additionally, Insider Gaming sources claim the game is not an open world title. Instead, it will feature more linear levels set across multiple planets. Gameplay is set to emphasize mobility and style while also being very fast-paced. Players will have access to Mandalorian gadgets such as a jetpack, used to execute a variety of aerial maneuvers, grapple hook, wrist rocket, and a visor for scanning and tagging enemies. The project is allegedly a year or two away from release. While this report should be taken with a grain of salt, we know that Respawn has a Star Wars FPS in the works. In January 22nd, 2022, the studio's publisher, Electronic Arts, announced that Respawn is developing multiple Star Wars games. One of them is the FPS led by game director Peter Hirschman, which could be the Mandalorian title. By the way, Peter Hirschman worked on Battlefront, the old Battlefront games that we were just talking about. So it's like it's an old-timer Star Wars developer working on that one. The other projects that were mentioned then was last year's Jedi Survivor and a yet-to-be-revealed strategy game. So, the FPS Respawn Star Wars game, Paul, we're going to be like behind the visor as like a bounty hunter.
I will say I do love that, because we have seen at least a little bit of that with Republic Commando and how well you can implement a good like visor. I mean, look at Metroid.
Yep. Literally Metroid.
That is a great example of like the HUD that's through that. You can see the edges of the visor at times. But when you fire, you can kind of see Samus's face a little bit. It's ripe for the great way to create a first-person shooter game. So I will say, you can make a lot of great stuff out of it. I was a little bit sad to hear at first, and even like at the start of this, where it's like, oh, if only it was a third-person game, because it's like there's so much fun you can have with seeing your character interact with the world. But I'm also a little salty still that 1313 just didn't exist.
Yeah, because that would have been a third-person.
Say four numbers that are going to ruin any Star Wars fan's day. So Yeah, I'm gonna be there for it day one. I love the Mandalorians even before they got super popular. I am signed up. I am locked in for the concept of a bounty hunting, excuse me, game. The jetpacks, all of the tools you're going to be able to use. I'm here for it. I'm ready for it. I want it so badly. And the fact that it's not even going to be Din Djarin is even better, actually, because then
Mhm.
that means that we can do.
Whatever you want.
It might be,
Yeah.
yeah, it might just be a new Mandalorian, and I'm all locked in for that because there's millions of them. Even after the purging and whatever, there's
Mhm.
still severals of thousands. And if we can make a Jedi game where there's one of the survivors, you can make a Mandalorian game just as easily.
Yeah,
So,
and they say that this is at the height of the Galactic Empire, so it's still in those 10 years, the same period
yeah,
as the same period as Jedi Survivor and Jedi Fallen Order. So it's like
right.
so way like so far away from any baggage from the TV shows and the upcoming movie, The Mandalorian and Grogu, out in 2026. So it's like at least now we know, we have an idea. Especially the insider gaming is like they're the ones that when I hear they report something, it's like I do know that they have legit sources. So it's like I believe them in this one. And
Yeah.
Respawn doing another FPS is like, can you imagine the fast paced nature of you being like that bounty hunter, like boosting around, maybe running on walls and all of that, like as you're hunting the crew? I can only imagine how fun that will be, like with Respawn at the helm, because they're the masters of movement. So whenever this happens, maybe next year, because it's like for Star Wars, obviously we have Outlaws this year. So
Yeah.
that's our like next most anticipated game. Now they're going down the list. Now Rebirth is like around the corner. We know it's like we know it's gonna be great. So it's like now Outlaws is like, please be good. Please release this year. Like, please Ubisoft. Like, I'm gonna forgive you the Skull and Bones fumble, because that's a game that has been in development in so long before you made the recommitment to simplicity and scaling back. So yeah, can't wait. And then there's the Star Wars Eclipse game by Quantic Dream that we heard like 3 years ago. That's still probably until like
We don't talk about
2027.
Eclipse. We're not
Yeah.
gonna do all that.
And
Uh,
the Amy Hennig Star Wars project from
Honestly,
Skydance Media.
I don't need to hear about all of the disappointing side of Star Wars. I'm ready for the fact that there's a couple of them on the horizon. That's what I'm going to focus on, because if I don't, I'm just going to get disappointed and frustrated at Star Wars again.
Yeah. So and that's all for like the big news. Time for some quick headlines, Paul.
All right.
Stories that basically the headlines tell the story. So Xbox announces multi-platform releases for Hi-Fi Rush out on March 18th on PlayStation 5, and Sea of Thieves out on April 30th on PlayStation 5. And Rare made the point that this will be the first game that company has ever shipped on a PlayStation, because they were Nintendo. They were a Nintendo studio doing Donkey Kong, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark, and all of that before they got bought by Xbox. So that's wild. So, and it's definitely on April 30th. People are gonna have a much better pirate experience than Skull and Bones, because this is a true pirate experience. So, another headline: EA is offering 11,000 players $600 to opt into appearing in EA Sports College Football, the NCAA like college football game that always used to release before Madden. Like also in a given year, has not released a new game since 2014 because of licensing disputes. That apparently like lawyers have put like a lot of effort to try to like legally allow EA to pursue that kind of game again with likenesses and all that. So they're like, hey players, you want to be featured in your game? Come, we'll pay you $600. It's like they will pay the players to be there. So they really want this
About
because
time they sorted that out, because that was getting ridiculous how long that was taking.
yeah, and NCAA was like super. A lot of people prefer NCAA football to
Oh yeah.
Madden. So
I grew up with NCAA, and I would usually. It's weird of me because we're in the deep south of the SEC.
Uh-huh.
Let's go LSU represent.
Uh-huh.
Because we're undoubtedly like the best division of all of college football, so it was really nice to get that representation. But yeah, it's NCAA was always really good, and usually was better made than Madden, I would say.
That's what's so weird, that
Really
the
weird.
college one was like had much higher quality than the football, the regular seasonal one. So
It doesn't make sense. It's just all I can think is too many hands trying to put their hand in the cookie jar on that all at once.
oh yeah. So another headline: Pokemon Presents returns next week, February 27th, to celebrate Pokemon Day. So usually on Pokemon Day, they announce like a lot of weird projects, maybe a new look into whatever the new Pokemon game is, things like that. My big hope for that day is that they announced that on Nintendo Switch Online, the old Pokemon games are gonna show up, like red, blue, yellow. That would make me so happy. So
I hope so.
I know OC from our clan, from our Destiny clan, is gonna be very happy for this. So this one, I was excited at the idea. Then I saw the set list and I kind of got disappointed. Lady Gaga is coming to Fortnite, which is such a weird like headline. I was like, I made the joke. I was like, this is my time, because it was like, if they put the Alejandro song from 2010 as like maybe like a dance or something, I'm gonna buy that. And they didn't put it.
It's just not as popular of one of her songs, I would say, which is a shame considering your name.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not as popular, but every time people hear my name, they start singing it. That's what's so funny.
That's the ironic part of it. Like, because I always think of like Poker Face, Bad Romance, which is already
they're gonna be there. Mm-hmm.
And a couple of the others I can't even remember right now. Applause, I did like that one a lot.
Yeah, she has a bunch of she has a couple bangers, and a bunch of those are there. It would have been fun, though. I'm not gonna discard the idea that maybe more songs get added over time, because this is for the Fortnite Festival thing. So
honestly, I've been waiting for them to add more songs than what they currently have, because they were for a bit like every couple of weeks adding a new set list. I thought it was going to be like a rotation, and then they just kind of stopped. So I think a lot of my interest in like, oh, let me go check what that side of the shop has for today, and it was like never anything that I really wanted to play. I was like, I'm not spending $5 to maybe play a little bit of this. It's kind of dumb.
Yeah, but it's like, hey, Lady Gaga's gonna be there. At least I still have Fortnite installed, because why not?
I do, and I have that 2 terabytes, baby.
I know, so it's like I still have it. I saw the patch to this. I'm like, I'll try the songs, because I do love me some Lady Gaga. So, Elden Ring, Shadow of the Erdtree DLC. The trailer promises a June 21st release date. You saw the trailer, Paul, right?
Wait, of what?
Elden Ring, the DLC.
Oh. Have I seen the trailer?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, so I usually don't know with you, because you sometimes forget. So yeah, they randomly out of nowhere, like on Tuesday, we're like, oh yeah, trailer out tomorrow, and a lot of people are like, I've never seen the internet stop. Like that happened to be like, oh my god, the Elden, like they made a countdown, like a 30-minute countdown, like before. So it's like they knew they had like a hype cycle going, and then seeing that thing, I'm like, thank God it's in June. Thank God it's not in the middle of all of this.
I was so worried that it was going to be like March.
Yeah.
Or everybody was theorizing that it was going to be a shadow drop. I was like, I don't need that right now. I don't need that right now.
Yeah, especially
I was going to leave it left for dead on the side of the road, because I just had too much else going on in my life right at that point. But now I think I got time for that, if it's going to be in late June like that.
Yeah, because in June, what else is there? Final Shape. Other than that, is like,
we'll see how that goes.
Exactly. So it's like, it's perfect for June, because we don't know anything else is coming out in June. We know that Visions of Mana is the summer, but that's still just a summer. That's still just a vague summer
and that's
window.
3 months worth.
That's June, July, August. So it could be. I can imagine the Square Enix sees that, be like, oh, we're gonna definitely push Visions of Mana a little further to kind of give Elden Ring, because Elden Ring is not like a big name enough so that here's another headline: From Software isn't ruling out Elden Ring 2 or a second expansion. This was like out of like an interview that IGN did to Hidetaka Miyazaki about this thing, and they were like, yes, like we know that Elden Ring is big, and here's what's so funny: like From Software acquired the Elden Ring IP from Bandai Namco. Like,
oh shoot,
yeah, they acquired. So even though Bandai Namco is still publishing Elden Ring. But it's like they got the name, so it's so funny that they had that kind of leverage, that they were able to get that from Bandai Namco. So, and apparently they did that because of the money that Tencent and Sony invested to Kadokawa, which is like who owns Front Software. So, so it's like another expansion is like the fact that it took 2 years to make this, but then you see the size of what they showed. I'm like, yeah, there's a reason why. And I usually am not a fan of their DLC because they're so freaking hard. Like that old Hunters DLC destroyed me.
I'm right there with you, frankly.
Yeah, but there's something about Elden Ring that is like, you know what? I want to go back to the Lands Between. It's like
this is going to be the time where my patience has paid off because I never created a new game plus character. So my
Uh-huh.
dude is going to be locked in at
In
the end of the game,
uh-huh.
and I can jump straight into the DLC wherever that ends up being. It's just a matter of where to go for it because that's
Yeah,
always part of the mystery.
I got screwed by doing two new game pluses now, so that keeps it just keeps like increasing the delta like difficulty. So, but yeah, I'm like excited. I'm so excited to go back to it because I still have Elden Ring installed because there's just something about that's such a magical game. I
Oh yeah.
think about it often. Like it's so weird. I never thought I would. After I flipped it the finger when I finished it. So it's like
I
it's
remember the picture you posted.
I still have it hosted because it's like a over a season game. Is like my ASC is such a he's such a simp for this game, like
Mm.
excessively so that I'm like being a contrarian. Is like nah. Because did I tell you that we did like a ranking of the Souls games like individually? Like I put Bloodborne at the top. I prefer Bloodborne.
Yeah.
Which is so funny. Next headline: From Software Buzz very happy to see fans calling for a Bloodborne remake. So kind of like that also kind of came up with the in that same interview that IGN was doing, and apparently he says like, yeah, no, we're really happy to see that Bloodborne has been resonating with fans so many times that they're asking like for something else to happen, but he literally said, but that's Sony's call because they own the IP. So I'm like,
That's
Sony,
what broke my heart.
yeah.
Where I was like, oh, like he finally came out and said, it's like, listen, guys, it's not going to happen under our choice, and
Mm-hmm.
that's what made me a little sad. Because like I was hoping there was some other reason,
Why we
like the
hadn't? Yeah.
usual like Nintendo kind of style of thinking where it's like, oh, we just didn't realize that that's what people wanted.
Mm-hmm.
Oopsie. But then it's like, no, guys, we just don't own the IP. We can't do anything about it. And I was
Mm-hmm.
like, ah, shoot, that's
And you
like,
know what
that's
makes it more
fair.
heartbreaker that he reemphasized that Sony owns the IP is like a lot of people forget that Bloodborne happened because of Studio Japan for Sony. Because it's like they provided the concept, the idea. They went to From Software, be like, we kind of have this concept. We think like your formula could work here. Would you like to work this? It's like the studio that did that. Sony shut down in 2021 because fucking Jim Ryan was all about like just the blockbusters only for over on the West. But which side of the world right now is having the most success?
Japan.
Japan. It's so funny when you look at it. Just that picture, right? It's like all
Yep.
the bangers for this year have been Japanese. Next week's banger, Japanese.
Yep.
Not not like
I
what.
feel like there's been a weird level of disrespect towards all of the Japanese developers lately.
Uh,
And it's like it's never been really outright stated, but it's kind of strange when you really break it down because there was that like 80s, 90s, 2000s, like it was all doing fantastic and then suddenly everyone was like, "No, big budget, high cinematography, crazy level of this," like during the 2010s and suddenly
mhm.
it like perception shifted away
Yeah.
from the Japanese developers and then suddenly like
No.
usually that's just, oh, they're less popular, but then it's just like they all cut the funding of them. They
Mhm.
dropped their divisions in Japan, and I was like, guys, what the heck is going on here? It
Here's
doesn't really make any
here's what
sense.
happened. It was like there was like because since I follow Gene Park, he really like emphasizes this. The 360 and PS3 era was really bad for Japan because the transition to HD was really bad for them because it was like they struggle longer to kind of get into getting to terms into how to do like an HD game. Whereas the
Yep.
West was the one that like jumped really quick into that. What was the big game that was so popular around that time? Call of Duty.
Yep.
Why? So a bunch of Japanese games around that time try to westernize themselves because they were like, oh no, apparently like people don't care about Japan anymore. We have to like try to appeal to the West. That's kind of where Lost Planet kind of came from. Even though like originally it was like such an original idea with the original one, the second one and third one became a little bit more like trying to appeal to the Western audiences kind of thing. Like Resident Evil
Yeah.
5 and 6, a clear example of what they were trying to like cater more towards with the let's try to make it more actiony because that's kind of what they want. Is that there was a disrespect towards Japan in that 360 era that during the PS4 Xbox One generation, Japan slowly kept like climbing back again in respect because they earned
Yeah.
it. And also
That makes sense.
and also the West keeps screwing up. And I feel now in the PS5 Series X generation, Japan's flourishing. Like the two highest rated games of this
Oh, yeah.
generation, Zelda Tears of the Kingdom and Elden Ring, Japanese games.
Mhm.
The highest rated game of this year, Japanese games. Not a third person over the shoulder, like highly cinematic, highly produced crevice crawler Thank you, Travis, for that one.
Reddit's crawler.
Crevice crawler. So
Crevice crawler.
Crevice crawler. So basically, like, what do those games have in common? At some point, you're gonna be like shimmying through like a crevice, like
I remember this segment now where he clicked it together with all of the different characters doing their little shimmy across the their little cracks through the wall and stuff. Yeah. Oh my goodness!
And it's so fun, and it's so funny, like playing through Final Fantasy VII Remake. That's like even Gene Park mentions it in his review over at Washington Post. Like Remake, in the lead up to it, they had said that The Last of Us was like a big inspiration on how they paced a lot of that game. You can really tell. Cloud, follow me. Let's talk about here. Time to crevice crawl things. It's like, it's so funny that's such a.
I hate how slow Cloud goes through those things too.
Yeah, in Remake. Yeah, he goes so much quicker in the crevice crawl parts, the rebirth part, that you don't have to play anymore if you play the demo. Play through those parts now, people, because that's like a linear part. So it's so funny. I'm so glad, because to me, Japanese games have always been the best, all the time. There's just some, like Kingdom Hearts, Paul, your favorite game, Japanese game. So it's like there's some the Japanese flavor of games is like the most unique, and like your favorite game from last year, Paul. What was it?
What was it again? Oh, Armored Core.
Armored Core 6. Japanese game.
Japanese game.
So it's like there's just something there. It's like I feel there's still like some soul. There's a soul to Japanese games that right now the Western market lacks. Like the Western market feels like more safer because it's more high budget. It's like that's why like Sony's not releasing any first party stuff, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not missing it. It's like instead of the exclusives they're getting, it's like all Japanese flavor. It's like so much more exciting for me. Like it's so much more like tasteful. It's like it's just so much more unique. So yeah, so now Sony, now you've been put on blast. Now we know it's like it's you that's not doing anything with Bloodborne. So they better deliver. And with that, Paul, that's the end of headlines. Tell me, what's out for the week of February 25th to March, whatever the day is in March.
Yeah.
So
we got Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons remake on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, PC on February 28th. Cook Serve Delicious on Xbox Series X and S and Xbox One on February 28th. Star Wars Dark Forces Remaster on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, and PlayStation 4, Xbox One, Switch, and PC on February 28th. Final Fantasy VII Rebirth on PlayStation 5, February 29th. And Euphoria, the Saga 2 on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X and S, Switch, and PC on March 1st.
Yeah, so March 2nd was the week that ends. So we're in March now. The month's over.
It's done.
So yeah.
I really hope that Dark Forces Remaster ends up being good. One day maybe we can pick it up on a sale. Because it would be nice to go through that series, especially if they add some accessibility options. Please.
Yeah, because those games are hard, because I have Dark Forces on Steam. So
and not in the fun kind of hard either. It's just kind of unfair at times.
Yes. I'm trying to remember who's doing the because it's like, is it Aspire also? Oh no, it's Night Dive Studios. Okay. Yeah, I was like, are they releasing this and the Battlefront like 2 weeks apart?
Insane if they did that, but no, that makes more sense.
Two separate developers. And that Dark Forces game is like so good. It's so good. It was like in the era of the Doom and Wolfenstein shooter. It's like that was high up there. Those games were high up there in the PC in the PC space. So, and that led to Jedi Knight, which then beckoned led to Jedi Academy. So great. This was great Star Wars stuff. But yeah, next week it's Rebirth Land. There's like Rebirth is like what we'll be diving in. You will hopefully dive into it and not keep playing Helldivers 2.
I will start it, and we'll see. Sometimes if the friends call on me, I'm gonna jump over. So I'm definitely gonna lose time to you.
No. I bet you, especially like if Final Fantasy 16 is any indication, it's like these games come with peaks and valleys. So those valleys are gonna like Helldivers 2 at least will be there to kind of like whenever there's like any Steam loss. If you just mainline
drive, if I can't get into Helldivers.
Yeah, I've been like just kind of checking. The servers are pretty good if you want to just go play Helldivers 2 right now. So
I'm probably gonna jump into it.
Yeah. So and that is the end of this week's episode, Paul. So where can people find you?
As always, y'all can find me at Dork of Art on Twitter. I have been posting more drawings than I usually do, sketching random things. I commented on this popular Twitter user of some funny picture he had, I think, with his girlfriend or something, and I drew them, and it got like 40 likes or something and a few retweets. So I was like, yeah,
Yeah.
low-hanging fruit. But
You
also,
gotta do
I've been
it. You gotta
sketching
do
a
it.
lot more random stuff anyway. I don't even think I got any followers out of it. It's just all bots at this point. But
Porn
anyway,
bots?
yeah.
Because I've been
That's
getting the porn bots.
usually, but every once in a while, it's just like a random bot of some random person, like phishing them, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Yeah, Instagram has been really bad with the porn bots also. I'm like, oh, they're
I
invading
didn't even
this
think
area.
that it's allowed because it's such against their what you call it terms
They
of service.
hide behind like just a profile picture, and then they just kind of send you like private messages. So I had
Oh,
to,
that kind of stuff.
yeah,
Oh,
so
I
I,
hate
so,
that.
so I had to kind of like start blocking some stuff or whatever. Hey, you can find me at a_Segovia on Twitter/X. You can find me on Threads/Instagram at Alejandro_Segovia93. There's my dog. You can find my written content at seasongaming.com and thecriticalcorner.com. You can go read my 3 reviews for this year so far, which are The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered, Grand Blue Fantasy Relink, and Skull and Bones, a game that I had no plans of reviewing, but we kind of got the opportunity. But it was like
It just happened.
that just happened literally. So, and my next review will be Rebirth whenever that happens, and however long it takes. So, Paul, good to see you here. See you on check's calendar, March 7th. So,
All right,
yeah.
I'll be back for that.
Yeah, by then you'll have played more of Rebirth, and now time to look who's gonna fill up the spot on the 29th. So
That is going to be a fun one. We'll see.
yeah, because
Travis should come back on the show sometime.
yeah,
That'll be fun.
he was wanting to like I had asked him to come back for Destiny. This tomorrow would have been the day that Final Shape was releasing, and that got delayed.
That is a sucky experience for that. Because we were talking about how long it's been since Witch Queen came out. Shout out to all the clanmates that still listen in for us. We miss y'all. We love y'all. Jump on Helldivers.
Yeah, especially we love you, Gons. Paul specifically loves you.
And Duncan for agreeing to mail me a 3D printed Helldivers helmets.
Really?
Shout out. Yeah, they said DM me your address and I'll send you one for a housewarming gift. So I was like, yes.
That's so cool that he was able to do that. So
yeah, I'll be putting that up on my bookshelf.
Yeah, and you definitely have to take a picture and send it to me. I want to see how that looks. So
I think they're gonna paint it for me too, so that'll be really fun.
Ooh, I wonder how close it's gonna look to like that.
Oh, I think.
And which one? I wonder because there's like different models.
They sent me there was the champion one that you really liked, and then the default. I think I was gonna pick the default one just because it's the most recognizable, and the other one looks like a default like Mandalorian thing, and I didn't want anyone like, oh look at the Mandalorian. It was like, no, you stupid.
Yeah.
Listen to me.
I know.
But yeah, that's what's gonna happen. So shout out to Duncan being a real one. Anyway.
That's this week's episode. And you want to listen, we want to thank you so much for listening and watching whenever you decide to listen, and in any of the certain platforms that the show is on. We appreciate your listenership. We're getting like close to like crossing the over like 2K over a listen spell, so I'm so excited for that. So it's like the show just keeps trucking along, even with you no longer being here like fully. So but the guests have been good, so I can't wait to see who I bring in next week. So until then, Paul and everyone, enjoy playing some games. Go replay Remake or Crisis Core if you have the time before that Rebirth, because it's like it's gonna lead in nice into that. Hopefully your winters are not too bad. How's snow in your area right now, Paul? Has it stopped?
Non-existent. It only rained for that one like weekend, and then it's over. But it's still pretty chilly here and there. But now I can actually go outside in the sun and I don't need a jacket. So
okay, it's one of those winters. So hopefully everyone else that's like still in winter weather, it's still like not too enclosed. You can still go outside, play some games or touch some grass, but if not, just play some video games and
press X
to play.
Good night, everybody.
Hasta la vista, baby.